Ladies and gentlemen, holy Toledo, what a way to kick off the market here on Monday. Another crazy day in the market, continuing on with this tariff trade war. We don't know if stocks are going up, down, sideways, diagonal, but hey, we finally see a little bit of relief in today's market. Thank God. And what we specifically see for Palantir is actually a decent amount of buying pressure popping up right now in the overnight hours on Robinhood and having a lot of resiliency in the market, especially for a highly valued tech stock. We're going to be talking about some key points for Palantir, what we're seeing in terms of price action, what's happening in terms of the worldwide markets. We're talking about Japan, the Asian markets, South Korea, what we're seeing with futures right now in the overnight, and in terms of what could be happening tomorrow. 2 days from now is April 9th. That is when we could have more tariffs coming. So let's get to it. If you're a new or returning viewer, hit that like button, subscribe for daily videos. Let's start off with this clip here from the European Union.
Stand ready to negotiate with the United States. Indeed, we have offered 0 for 0 tariffs for industrial goods, as we have successfully done with many other trading partners. Because Europe is always ready for a good deal, so we keep it on the table. But we are also prepared to respond through countermeasures and defend our interests. We stand ready to...
Interesting to see the European Union coming out right here. This is the Commission President talking about they are ready to negotiate with 0 for 0 tariffs. We have more countries that are starting to come to the table, talk about negotiations. Are these tariffs going to eventually be delayed or go away? We don't know. But what we do have is even false post happening on X today, pausing tariffs. That's what the false post was about. That caused about $2.4 trillion from a single account of about 1,100 followers that posted this headline that got some of the big major articles in news outlets like CNBC to even upload it on a headline before it was quickly taken down, causing a lot of volatility and buying pressure within the market. Now, talking about where Palantir sits right now, at market close was at 77.84, up about 5% on the day. And right now we're seeing Palantir that's crossing over $80 in the overnight after hours. Wow, lots of buying pressure there, considering that Palantir recently had a strong dip down here to about $66. Quickly looking at this article right here, talking about this analyst that is actually calling for a near-term upside in Palantir despite the tariff sell-off. Now, talking about upside right now, yes, has a lot of riskiness behind it. A lot of people are trying to predict where is the dip, especially with more tariffs that are still kind of in the horizon, in the near horizon too, in just 2 short days. Talking about this William Blair analyst, though, talks about kind of buying Palantir stock on this recent weakness since it's positioned for a significant upside in the near term. What he's saying here is that this William Blair bullish analyst on the stock on the near term due to the fact that we recently see a redirection of Pentagon funds to relocate about $50 billion to advance military technology, including drones. We know in terms of a defense perspective, the defense industry and how Palantir has some very strong ties and relationships with the government. We've seen that in the actual defense contracts and things like that. This William Blair analyst here is saying this could prove to be a tailwind for Palantir as its software is what really powers those military technologies. Another big thing that we have seen is this kind of trade war in these tariff wars between the U.S. and China. The question is with these tariffs, are we going to see like announcements from the European Union that we just saw, trying to negotiate these 0 for 0 tariffs? That's not really the case right now with China, as we have Beijing that has actually already announced a 34% retaliatory tariff on American products. Trump even came out today saying, hey, he was going to increase the tariffs from China if they're not going to back down, if they're not going to negotiate. I think we're going to see a lot of that kind of bouncing back and forth with these different negotiations and debates with all these different countries. China right now showing some retaliation. How that relates to Palantir is that Palantir actually doesn't have a ton of revenue exposure to China. Due to this ongoing volatility, it hardly has any revenue exposure to China, which is bullish because a lot of these stocks and the big stocks within like the Magnificent Seven, like Apple taking a big hit, is because of their fear on what's going to be happening with the iPhone, with the sales regarding that, how revenue is going to be affected. Palantir doesn't really have to worry about that because it doesn't do a ton of business with China. So with that, since a lot of its business is within the US, that is a strong argument in terms of a bullish perspective on why I can see this analyst talking about this near term upswing in Palantir. And that Wall Street is basically cautiously positive on Palantir. Right now, the mean target currently sits at about $84. There's a lot of volatility, though. Like I said, things can go up or down very, very quickly right now. And that does lead me to this false post on X talking about this. How this all started today was that we had multi-trillion-dollar stock market swings just due to this fake report on X. Around 8:30 this morning Eastern time, the National Economic Council's Kevin Hassett right here, he was asked during a live Fox News interview whether Trump would consider a possible 90-day pause to the sweeping tariffs. Hassett had responded saying that I think the president is going to decide on what the president is going to decide, basically saying what he wants to do is what he's going to do in terms of his announcements. That basically got reiterated, morphed into this bogus headline right here that Trump was considering a 90-day pause on tariffs for all countries except China. This comes from an account here that only had 1,100 followers, and from there it took off like a virus. Dozens of other accounts that were verified on X reshared it, and not after that you had Reuters and CNBC also reporting it. Around 10:12 right here, this is about a 10-minute movement. 10-minute time lapse right here. Cheers broke out across the New York Stock Exchange. And according to CNN, the market actually rallied. And that's what we'll be talking about here in a second. About a minute later, you also have Walter Bloomberg posted this. And so it just basically got posted all over the place, causing about $2.4 trillion to be moved between the time of 10:08 and 10:18 a.m., according to Dow Jones market data. Crazy to see how something can get blown out of proportion so quickly. And leading to where the markets go today, that is also an important thing to look at. The S&P 500 closing just slightly in the red, but actually had a decent day today, down only about 0.23%. The NASDAQ actually finishes in the green. We're seeing some positive momentum coming in here, a little bit of cooling off from the selling pressure that we have seen. Right now in the overnight hours, the NASDAQ's actually up about 1.7%, currently up at 471 right now. Looking at the S&P, sorry, I might have said the NASDAQ, but the VU, which is the Vanguard index that tracks the S&P 500, at 471 right now, doing fairly well in the overnight hours. And we're seeing the actual Japan Asian markets rising over about 6% after these previous session kind of steep losses that we saw beginning Monday morning. We're seeing a rebound right here. Hong Kong's, you can see, doing well. South Korea, all these major indexes are inching up slightly. One of the biggest threats, though, that we did see in terms of the tariff news was the threatening of the additional 50% on China if Beijing did not lift its duties on U.S. imports. And unfortunately, what we're seeing is some retaliation from Beijing. So right now, in terms of the short term, I don't think we're going to see any positive, negotiations between these two specific countries. But more aggressive global tariffs over the weekend here, going into effect on Saturday. We have this reciprocal tariffs that are set to begin on April 9th. That's going to be on Wednesday. So we're going to be keeping a close eye on what's going to be happening within the market. We saw swinging between the indexes today. Like I said, at least we saw a little bit of cooling off. We needed some cooling off in the market. Everybody to take a little bit of a deep breather. And kind of depending on what's going to be happening. We see crude oil dipping below $60 during the morning. So it's the first time since 2021. Talking about this worry about, economy, weak and blah, 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 blah. All what the headlines are saying the same thing. Looking quickly at crypto. actually showing some signs of resiliency. Bitcoin was down a little bit. How come I don't have it on my watch list here? Anyway, Bitcoin was down a little bit, but actually is popping back up. Oh, here it is. Back up to 80,000 right now. So crypto's actually being pretty resilient given the volatility that we've seen in the market and what we've seen for some of the big stocks right here. Apple falling, kind of taking selling pressure in terms of the broader market just due to its market weight in terms of market share, down about 3.7%. You see NVIDIA right here, Broadcom actually rising, people buying the dip on NVIDIA, sitting at an interesting, decent price right now if we do have any type of sign of reversal at 97.64. This was just bouncing down here to about $88 in the after hours. So HIMS, right here, coming up about 6%. Tempest, Big Bear, all about 2%, 3% across the board. Seeing some buying back pressure. We'll see if it holds. What's your opinion? Peace out, take care, and I'll catch you guys later.